What's up, gang, and welcome to another episode of Inspired By, a series where we look at the musical trends, past and present, to understand the techniques used so that you guys can make better music. My name's Will, and I make a plethora of music under the moniker Hushchild. Today, we're looking at Eevee. Today we're looking at the wonderful lo-fi sounds of Eevee, spelt just like the Pokemon, but not to be confused with the four-piece band from the Philippines. Eevee is a 27-year-old producer from the Netherlands. Her discography is absolutely immense, and I've been hugely influenced by her work since Beat Tape 04 was released in 2015. I'm sure loads of producers like me are influenced by Eevee's sound. She manages to find the most lovely vinyl samples that complement her dry drums just perfectly. And as luck would have it, coinciding with the release of this episode, Native Instruments gave away a free VST, the Yangqin. And as soon as I heard that demo and downloaded the instrument, I knew that it would be a great lead instrument to showcase the sound behind Eevee's most popular track, Mist. I will leave a link to that instrument in the description below. If you're watching this video at the time of its release, you can probably still get it for free. Now, in true Inspired By fashion, I must say that we're doing exactly that. We're taking inspiration from a track. This isn't like other music tutorials where I'm just teaching you step by step how to recreate a track. So don't jump down into the dungeon below where the comments are found to tell me that this doesn't sound like Mist. As always, if you like what you've seen, maybe learned something new, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you get notified when the next video goes out. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see in future videos, leave me a comment. I ask plenty of questions throughout the video anyway, so let's have a chat. I'd just like to quickly thank Soundsmiths, who always give me an amazing palette of sounds to work with and are today's sponsor of the video. Make sure you check out their sounds at soundsmiths.co.uk or head to Splice, just type in Soundsmiths and you'll find their loops, samples, and even serum presets. Let's jump into it. Let me dive straight into the instrument selection, and one of the ones that I was most excited about was this Yangqin instrument, free from Native Instruments. This is what it looks like. Look at that, super clean design. Not a sponsor, just genuinely excited. And this comes with a few goodies. If we go down the octaves to a lower C, what you actually get is parts of a song. So you can see here, phrase 1, we're getting Autumn Wind. And as I move through the scale, you'll see that we're playing the different parts of this particular song. So they've actually given you basically samples to use, which is really cool, as well as individual notes, dynamics, and performance techniques. So let's just have a little look at this. There's the D. I think that's super cool, and as soon as I started messing around with this instrument, I knew I wanted to do an Eevee Mist kind of inspired beat. I've actually changed the scale here to a minor pentatonic, the root note being F, and you can see that you've got a mix of Japanese and more Western scales here, as well as being able to change the root. So first time round, I couldn't really find anything that I wanted to sample from the scale base of the plugin, but I started messing around with some of the individual notes, and it's really cool the way they lay it out. So if I play from C to C, have a listen and see if you can spot what's going on. And I'm at the following C. Well, those first three notes, you've got variations of that same note, and that allows you to be really creative with dynamics and rolls. So I knew that I wanted to have that roll-in sound that we hear in Eevee's Mist. So this is what I played in first of all. And originally when I recorded this in the first time, I played this part. So you can see that I drew in the dynamics there, so it went from more of a piano to a forte, and then we kind of went up the scale back into our loop. But it just didn't feel like it fit the song. So what I actually did was froze and flattened that in place. And I just pitched that same bit that you've just heard down 3 semitones. So we had this. And that just allowed everything to sit more nicely together. So if I add all my processing, which is just EQ8, Valhalla Vintage Verb, The Haas effect, you've seen me use it before just to give it a little bit of stereo width. A little bit of RC20 just to give it a little bit more character. I wanted it to sound like we'd sampled from vinyl. Eevee samples loads of tracks, and because I was making this from MIDI, I wanted to give it that vinyl effect. Do make sure you stick around to the end. When you see what I've done with the mix, I'm sure you guys are going to want to download a special plugin that I have in store and catch next week's video as well. Finally, I have a compressor. So this is what it sounded like all together. Under this, and one of the following things that I noticed from Eevee's track was this kind of bottle blown flute kind of sound. And I just pulled these away from their markings just by hand on a few notes, so it sounded a little bit more Dilla-esque, a little bit more rushed. If you're not familiar with Dilla, let me know in the comments, because that's a video that I'd love to do in the future. Once again, with that kind of arpeggio, all I'm adding is the EQ8 and then a little bit of auto pan. So it's just moving around your headphones a little bit. After this, with nothing but a sidechain compressor on there, I took this sample from Splice of just a string line. It was originally E flat major, and I just pitched it down 2 semitones and then a B flat major, and I pitched that down the same amount of semitones as well. And again, just adds to that sample kind of feel. It sounds like we've really cut and chopped it up. Nice and simple. And the first sound that I've used from the Soundsmith sample pack, and I used this sound in the Parsaloo video, so make sure you go back and check that out. I used it a little bit differently in that video. I've stretched it out this time around. It's just this little kind of flute run with a little bit of delay, which is just lovely. Super simple. If you take out the lead instrument, which is this Yang Chin here, we've just got this back and forth classic lo-fi jazz kind of sound. Now this is the main part of the song, and I felt like it was a little bit kind of mid-regiony. I knew that some of the percussion and drums would fill up that space, but I just added the E-piano here, and you can tell from the beginning to the end of that kind of loop, we're constantly extending those chords just to make them a little bit bigger towards the end. So we have this. Nothing special, kind of low passed as well, with again a little bit of a sidechain action and some tremolo there. As we get into the halfway mark, just add in that octave and fifth there, again to make it sound a little bit wider. Underneath all this, holding it together, is, as always, the operator bass. Comes with Ableton. All I've done is increase the attack a little bit so our kick drum can come through, and then added a little bit of overdrive, and as you've seen before, Waves R bass. If you don't buy any plugins, I would advise buying the Waves R bass. It's something like £15, and it really does pull the bass out of small speakers and alleviates a lot of the work you would do through harmonic saturation. I've got a little bit of both worlds there. I've got some overdrive, I got some R bass just to pull that out, just make it sound a bit weightier. And very simple. I can't really hear it in the track, but it just adds a little bit more of a resonance, a nice frequency. And you've seen me use this before. This is the free plugin from Ample Sound, just the acoustic guitar, and I just pitched it down. I just wanted to have kind of like a bass note. And that's all that's there. As you can tell, didn't really like that harmonic that was sitting here. I've rounded the bass down and I've added OTT, taken all the highs out just so we have those lows and those mids kind of rumbling through. And then it comes to our drums, and as always, I'm using Soundsmith's drum selection, this time with the Lo-Fi sample pack, of course. And I've tried to really copy those hats that we hear in Eevee's music, quite understated, quite low in the mix, often bringing in a new type of hat or a new type of percussion at the halfway mark. So here we've got this, again, kind of Dilla vibe. And then as we get into the halfway mark, just introducing a real straight hi-hat. Almost sounds like a tambourine. There's a little bit of percussion in there as well. The snares, this is the first time that I've used the Soundsmiths pack and actually layered up the sounds, but I just wanted a little bit more weightiness out of this snare, so I've just EQ'd these separately. This one leaving in pretty much everything, but taking out a little bit of the highs, and with this snare rolling it off and taking out all of the lows up until about the sort of 500 hertz region. So this is what those snares sound like. Almost like a clap snare there, and then something a little bit more bassy with a bit of attack. Of course, I got my kick here, just well rounded, taken out the frequencies that I didn't really like and added transient master. As I showed you guys earlier this week in our last video, just kind of making that punch through the mix a little bit more, but nothing too drastic. All of the drums together sound like this. Following this, I just have some risers and I just create a nice little intro / B section. The rest of the track is up to the filters. I know when Eevee plays live and a lot of other lo-fi producers, they use the SP404, and this is something that I'm going to dive into in next week's video. I can't afford to purchase the SP404, but I would love to have it. So I figured, why not make one? So this is the Lo-Fi. With this, I've just thrown on my master, nothing but Lo-Fi and just a spectrum, just so I can see where my various frequencies are sitting, if I'm missing anything. With Lo-Fi, what I'm able to do is just automate all these different parameters, as you can see here. What's going on? Well, basically, this top line here is any delays. I've also got the isolator, which is essentially creating the telephone EQ effect. We've got this crush here. The SP404 has basically a bit crush effect where you can kind of filter and bit crush at the same time. It's really nice. So I've kind of used that similar to how I've used it in my disclosure video, just to create these tiny little changes in the mix just to keep the listener intrigued. And then of course, where would a lo-fi track be without some beat repeats? So with that, I'll give you a taste of what these effects do. If I turn it on, you'll hear an initial bit of noise, and that's lo-fi doing its thing. Just adding some lo-fi vinyl distortion to the mix. And let's just play it from this section here. And that's essentially it, guys. Like I said, in next week's video, what I'm going to do is cover that lo-fi. I'm giving it away to all my Patreon members way before that video comes out. But if you want to check out the video before you decide to join my Patreon, make sure you hit that bell icon so you get notified when the next video comes out. And then, as I said, I'll be walking you through the lo-fi effects rack and just how you can build your own SP404 within Ableton as well. There we have it, guys. That was my Eevee inspired track. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to bop to this track, because I might actually release it. I'll throw it up on DistroKid. And if you guys want to release your own music, you can use the VIP code distrokid.com/VIP/Will Hatton, and you'll get 7% off your first year on that platform. I hope this video was helpful, guys. As I mentioned, in next episode, I'm going to jump back to this project and I'll show you the SP404 emulator that I created in the effects rack. If you're a member of my Patreon, you can download that effects rack ahead of time and get to work with it in your projects or in a live performance. Not that we're going anywhere, but still, preparation is everything. As always, guys, I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.